Hello.
How you doing, Darrin?
Hello.
This is my cousin Chris, also from Co-op City, from Section 4, Chris?
I don't even remember. Section 3. I went from 4 to 3, so I went down in life, actually.
He's right by the community center where the
You hear us?
library was.
Okay, I've met him before.
Yeah,
see?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I think we played hoops in Section 1 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
We're Matt Pargaman or something. You remember Pargaman?
Yes,
That's
I know.
funny stuff.
You remember the Joe
Man,
Bears?
I mean, I met you through Cliff,
Ah,
but I mean, I do recall. I mean, we're going back then.
man, I have dreams of football back in the day. You know, in the streets out there. Oh man.
Oh, okay.
You know that little dirty little field you had in front of the basketball court? Oh man, remember we used to play tackle on that ground? That was great, man.
Yeah, possibly. What are you, a professor now?
Oh yeah, so I've been teaching for about the last 12 years. Yeah, but I've been at the University of Paris, Sorbonne Law School, and I've been a lawyer. I've been practicing for a lawyer for about 20 years as well too. Both federal civil rights litigation, and then I went on to international human rights work with Amnesty International, and a little stint at the International Criminal Court and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, it's interesting. I was just trying to show up. I have a deposition coming up next week. So
Yeah. Really.
what happens now is, you know, just in the wake of the moratorium on the courts, everything has been done via these virtual platforms, so to speak. So we were just trying to organize with the opposing counsel as to what fit best into the purview of next week. So
what's the deposition
what took me so long.
It's
a civil case in connection with the police use of force incident. But I mean, I do so many of these. Case in point, I have the Jacob Blake case up in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm the expert on that case. So,
nice. So you're a lawyer as well too?
No. I'm a criminal justice expert. So,
okay, got it.
Oftentimes, what I do is opine from a procedural perspective as to what was appropriate and what was not appropriate. So, traditionally, what I do is, I review the, I guess the.
I think we're all born hard. I think we're all born hard on the hard tops of Co-op City. Do you remember Malcolm Walton, by the way? Buddy, do you remember him? From Boston City, because he kind of inspired all of us to get into criminal justice, I think, and this type of thing.
That's pretty funny.
Oh man, we'll talk about him later.
No,
he's like I'm just saying, he's like corn pop on steroids. I think more or less. I think. Anyway, okay, guys. Yeah,
Darrin was good friends with Ricardo Percy.
Oh, that's cool.
Greg's best friend. So they were good friends and
legendary, man.
Yeah. Darrin, can I introduce you a little bit here? Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead, shoot.
I'm also drinking a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah. Today we have.
Wait. If you feel comfortable with this, sir.
Chris.
Wait,
today we have.
I don't fucking care.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, what are you crazy? Even if I was uncomfortable with it, it's a Zoom platform, so in no way, shape, or form does that impede upon my personal beliefs. So that's
right. So today we have Dr. Darrin Porcher, who's a retired lieutenant/detective.
Retired lieutenant. Okay, okay. I'm sorry.
No, please tell me.
No, you're good. You said prior lieutenant/detective, so they're two different areas, but that's fine. Okay, we can go with that.
And retired officer with the Army Reserve. Congratulations. And he has a PhD. Is that in criminal justice from Fordham?
Yeah, I guess you could say that because it's multifaceted. Social work, criminal justice. It falls within the purview of criminal justice. So
and
that's how I'm oftentimes. I'm sorry, okay.
No problem. You currently teach criminal justice at Pace University?
At Pace University, right.
You've appeared on all of these shows. I've seen you on Fox.
I'm the shit.
On everything.
I'm
so you must know Professor Robert Kennedy Jr. very well, I would imagine. Right? Doesn't he have
Robert Kennedy Jr.?
Yeah, is it Robert Kennedy Jr.? Who's a great environmental lawyer out there? Oh, that's what I thought. All right, anyway.
That's environmental, Chris.
Yeah.
So we're hanging out today, three guys from the same neighborhood, and very intriguing to be here.
Yeah. It's an honor. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing this.
First question I have for you, Darrin,
answer I have for you
is, will New York come back? New York City.
Well, that's a very interesting question. So when we look at it from a prophetic sense, it's multi-layered. The first component is the elected official. Traditionally we look at that elected official at being the mayor as the chief executive of a city like New York.
Right.
That being said, the mayor has, I want to say, he has a year left in office. So based in that 1 year tenure, I don't foresee any significant changes in connection with his administration and connection with the direction we're moving. So that being said, we have to look forward to who the up and coming administration would be. Now we have to cast the characters that have recently been displayed or showcased, so to speak. And none of the candidates running for office are people that I see as presenting a plausible movement towards taking us to a better place. Now, public safety is really at the apex of this, and we take in consideration the social contract and where police fit into the purview of this. I think it's been grossly mismanaged under the de Blasio administration. So that being said, it's a clear harbinger for the need for someone that's an effective manager in public safety, and I just don't see it coming to fruition based on the cast of.
These anti-police marches. I mean, with Antifa
FTP,
and BLM,
FTP, BLM.
It's crazy. Seriously, it has to be shocking. It has to be shocking to you.
It is serious.
To your colleagues.
Let me just say, I'm terribly cynical about all of this. Is it possible that this is some sort of, without getting prophetic here, an end game scenario where it's some sort of a communist insurgency and they are taking over, and New York is going to be, some sort of a larger version of CHOP in Seattle? Yeah. I'm quite worried about this, I'd say. Are we facing an escape from New York type situation?
Well, there's been an echoing sentiment in connection with socialism, or the socialism platform that Mayor de Blasio had looked to introduce. So when you go back to his support of Bernie Sanders, for example, does it beg the question of, communism coming into play? It's highly unlikely, but the socialist foundation is something that's really prevalent within our city. So, and that's something that we see. That being said, in terms of coming back, I just think that there's a couple of things. I want to say it's multifaceted. The first thing is, granted, the up and coming electorate is just out of control, but I think that it's cyclical, so to speak. So we look at, under the Giuliani administration, we reached a place where public safety was of optimum importance. Then we go into, after the Giuliani administration, we had the 12 years of the Bloomberg administration. Really, all he had to do was, he didn't need to reinvent the wheel. He just kind of followed the schematic that was already in play.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, the de Blasio administration was very similar. But what happened was, he was exposed in the wake of the death of George Floyd, when the social adjustment movement manifested on a national level. And so now it begged the question of, how effective was Mayor de Blasio in retooling a strategy that's effective from the perspective of public safety? And he truly didn't have that ability, and it was something that was displayed based on his execution or failure to execute. Now we need someone that's going to be a groundbreaker. Someone is going to implement this seismic shift in public safety. Socioeconomic empowerment has been at the apex for years on end. So we take in consideration the stock market, for example. We receive funds based on sales within the stock. So I'm sorry, I don't mean it.
This is a very basic question, and I need to get this out first before we can move on. What do you think their objective is? Like I said, I'm very cynical. Maybe I'm a little bit age-old given my Catholic orientation, but I think, and my eschatology, but I think maybe we should ask whether they want to actually save New York and save the United States. Or is this a communist plot or a fascist plot? We can argue that's connected with global elements to destroy it. It's a different game than what we were playing from the 1960s, before and after the 1960s to the present. And I guess I'm relating my thoughts to and piggybacking on what Cardinal Vigano just said about the Great Reset that was declared by the United Nations and United Nations elements about being this really this epic battle between good and evil with the object of establishing a new world order. I don't know if you guys want to go with this type of discussion, but I'm just throwing it out there. Do they really want to save New York? Do they really want to save New York and America? That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
Okay. And this is real easy. I don't think there's internal and external collusion in terms of bottoming out New York City. I think this is mere incompetence on display as it relates to the elected official, that being de Blasio, coupled with Governor Cuomo. I think that when we have a capable and qualified leader that comes into the fold as the mayor of New York City, I think that you'll see a meteoric rise in the quality of life. So I focus this on incompetence as opposed to collusion on an internal and external piece.
My reference is ideology, and I think there's a global,
it seems to me, it's very apparent. It seems to me there are those on the left that are radicals that want to destroy the West.
They say that.
I'm not saying, de Blasio is identified with that. I'm not saying Cuomo, but they take capitalism for granted, closing of businesses. Look what's happening in Los Angeles, in Chicago. So there are elements that want to blow it up in my
opinion. They even have their newspeak aligned with these ideas, either to demoralize us or to justify their actions. And they're calling it, questions like intersectionality, right? And they openly talk about the destruction of Western civilization, the destruction of America as inherently racist, and white people are inherently, and these are just loaded languages that we've heard throughout history, which means we're about to blow it all up. And now they've been talking, using the word New World Order since Vatican II on up, and probably even before Vatican II. Even the very Mass in the Catholic Church has been renamed and reordered the New World Order, or the New Order Mass. It's just crazy. And now the big language is the Great Reset, as you saw on the front page of Time magazine. And it just begs 101 questions for any would-be big brother. I think it's a different game, and I think we're not playing the same ball game we were playing when we were growing up. We don't have to go in that direction.
Just getting back to that, just one question. How are we tolerating Antifa and BLM? Isn't this the new normal? Wouldn't this have been impossible to tolerate maybe under Koch or Giuliani? It definitely, even Bloomberg. How are we allowing it? It seems as though they took the teeth out of the police and they're afraid maybe to act, or they're getting their marching orders from up top to saying, let this happen. I mean, I'm baffled by it. Maybe you could help me out there.
I think a lot of it plays into the seismic shift within the Democratic Party. You mentioned Ed Koch as an example of being a mayor here. When you look at where the Democratic Party's principles stood back in, let's say, the 80s, it was very different. It was far more driven towards a conservative base. Sure. As we've moved from the 80s to the current stage, under the de Blasio administration, the Democratic Party has become more, I want to say, leftist and more liberal, but it subsequently put a lot of that population in harm's way. So when we look at what happened under the death of George Floyd back in June and May, there seemed as if there was this social outrage that manifested on a national level. So we look at places like, as you mentioned earlier, Los Angeles. We look at what's happening in Portland over 100 plus days. We look at what Chris mentioned in connection with the CHOP zone, or the quote unquote Chaz zone that occurred in Seattle, whereas we had a quote unquote de-police zone where there were no police, and you saw the result of that was we had multiple homicides, shootings, and sex offenses. So it was clear that did not work. And now we move to Minneapolis, Minnesota. As of recently, the last couple of weeks ago, the Department of Justice looked to partner with that municipality and introduce a series of resources so they can reduce the meteoric rise in crime. However, the city council failed to acknowledge the Department of Justice based on political principles. So what happened was you had the citizenry of Minneapolis, Minnesota, that actually sued the city council in connection with this defunding of police. So I just don't think that this is a concerted effort as a whole by the Democratic Party, I really see it more so as a level of gross incompetence. And I want to say it was kind of sparked with people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Omar out of Minnesota. And, you know, what they've said has sparked a drive in that direction. But what's interesting is when you look at the Democratic Party, I give you an example, Barack Obama, he endorsed a series of candidates and he spoke to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was not a candidate he elected to back because her principles did not run consistent with American values. That being said, I don't think that this
I think it's a different America. I think it's a different America even since Obama. I mean, okay, how about this?
Okay, but no doubt.
Chris, to circle back to what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, please.
I'm in wholehearted agreement, and that kind of runs parallel with the statement that I made earlier in connection with the seismic shift in the Democratic Party. When we look at when Koch was the mayor back in the 80s in comparison to de Blasio being the mayor now. There has been the pendulum has shifted in the Democratic Party. But I also think that we no longer have the bifurcated political system of just Democrats and Republicans. We now have independents and we have several other outlying components in politics. And I think that in many ways is driving people in different directions. I'm in wholehearted agreement, and this should be more than two parties. But that being said, when we look at the social the social issues in connection with the societal norm, that has switched, and now is the time. And you may not agree with what I'm about to say, but I think we really need a full-blown charging handle to kind of drive the machine. Because one of the things that I looked at under the Giuliani administration, we had this thing that we referred to as, and people use this inappropriately in connection with the quality of life policing or zero tolerance or broken windows policing, so to speak. Right. That's not the entirety of the theory. The theory was far more multifaceted than just locking people up. It also involved, if you have abandoned structures, renovating those structures and overall building up that the infrastructure, so to speak. People spotlighted and focused specifically to police locking people up for low-level offenses. Right. But how I tie that into the beginning of my statement is we need to go back to that approach because the horse has already escaped, and we need to take far more aggressive measures to reel back society, because if we continue to let it manifest on the course that it's moving, it's just a matter of time before the anarchy becomes the norm.
All right, well, gentlemen, if I could just continue on my train of thought here. Are we not seeing, as we speak, a wholesale theft of the presidency of the United States? Number one, are we not seeing as such a coup-de-etat? And as such, are we not seeing a Marxist insurgency within the United States? Or a fascist, because it's funny because you have the far left that's uniting with the billionaire class. So, if you're going to have the big corporate structure, then I submit that it's more of a fascist movement than a communist movement. But am I overstating the case here? Are we not seeing a coup d'etat as we speak? And this is, I think this is without respect to what side you agree on. If you just look at it analytically, coldly analytically, on what's happening in the vote count, and we don't have to get into the details of the election. But goodness, I mean, how could anyone possibly in a reasonable mind argue that this is a fair election? Without getting to that, is it possible, just looking at the rhetoric of the political left over the last 4 or 5 years, and especially over the last year and a half, I mean, they've really just ratcheted up the rhetoric and the actions relating to backing up their rhetoric with what seems to be, if you're a student of history, as a communist movement that's uniting with communist or fascist elements around the world, from globalist elites. And I'm talking about all the struggles from Australia to New Zealand to Europe, where I am, to where you guys are, and every corner of the country almost. It's a cultural Marxist movement that aligns with the uber elite class that is promising us the utopia of globalism and socialism and so on and so forth. Either way, un-American, and we're talking about the end of the U.S. Constitution and the end of America as we know it. Am I overstating myself here? What do you guys think?
I understand where you're looking, Steve. If you wanted to interject, by all means,
go ahead.
I'm sorry to talk this way, but yeah, please tell me.
No. I can understand where you're coming from, but I will tell you this much: the morning after the election, I was on Fox News, and we spoke to voting irregularities and things to that effect. Now, granted, it's one of these things that it's troubling. The optics are troubling. However, and Chris, I'm speaking to you as an attorney. Chris, what I was mentioning is you as an attorney would understand better than anyone else that if you don't have substantive proof, it's very difficult to advance that agenda.
There's plenty of there's plenty of
but hear me out. Okay. In connection with voting irregularities or corruption in the voting process.
Right.
So we just had several judges that have shot down Trump's claims moving forward in terms of going into court.
With all due respect, not all judges think legally, and they don't think in a reasonable way. I mean, they could also be political hacks. Just like we saw, the rise of Hitler and the Nazis, the rise of Hitler and Nazis, and the rise of Soviets was on the back of legality, for goodness sake. That's why the second Nuremberg trials were against judges, errant judges, immoral judges, and doctors. So, I mean, just like we're seeing now, history seems to be repeating itself. Anyway,
let me interject.
I don't want to get into that way details here, but
we just found out that a judge went to jail in Pennsylvania or pleaded guilty for stuffing ballots for Democrats recently. So these things do happen. There is corruption. I want to know how we allowed these ballots to take over the election. Was this part of pandemic or the pandemic to make everyone afraid to stay home?
No, but in terms of substantive legal arguments, let me just say, I mean, for goodness sake, Giuliani just filed suit against Pennsylvania for, I mean, this is clear enough, for allowing 23,000 or so, at least at this count, for one state, dead people to vote. I mean, what more can we say?
And there are videos of people doctoring ballots.
And there's and apparently
Do I think that should be looked into? Absolutely. But I'm also a firm component in we need to let the process play out. And we go back to Bush Gore back years ago when we had the ballot situation. I think that should be a harbinger for how we should look to the process moving forward.
Certainly, the Gore side would not say that. They think that they played it wrongly. But anyway, yeah, please. Yeah. So Pam Bondi.
When I listened to Pam Bondi, who's an attorney working with Trump, I listened to her talking points. I just think that a lot of this is premature. I think we need to get everything. I think after the election after we complete the election counts, we garner all of the numbers, then we conduct a comprehensive investigation as to what we have.
Well, I hope that happens. The problem
they're going to rush them in.
I think maybe even today or in the next few days, I think Biden is going to swear in. And then you have the mainstream news networks and big tech colluding, and they're going to support, they're going to have balloons, champagnes popping, that we have the new president. And then they're going to...
Chris, I don't know if you understand what my background on this is. I'm publicly a Trump supporter. So if you just look at my bio, right. So in no way, shape, or form am I looking to shield Joe Biden.
No. But my point is that time is of the essence, and what determines a president is as much the opinions of the mass of the people and the way that they connect with what the media tells them. Sadly, since 2000, we're even that much connected to the media than we were back then. This is crazy, especially when we deal with millennial psychology and what big tech tells them, like Jack Dorsey.
Generation X.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm coming from the perspective of, and I sit down with a lot of these people in terms of, the head of the GOP. And I've had these, case in point, just on Wednesday, I was on with Maria Bartiromo on Fox Business. After we finished the interview, I think we made a spoke for like maybe 2 hours in terms of what direction this thing is going to go into. Oh. And she feels not that based on her opinion, this needs to be the presiding opinion, but we kind of side within the same space. Look, let's see what's been introduced. And after we're able to assess what's there, then we'll move forth with a strategy. As
If
opposed to just speaking to things.
if you tell
See,
me
the
that,
problem, wait. The problem I have with that is it seems like the Republicans are always on the defense.
yeah, not only
The
that, it's also
Democrats
the,
present something, and then we have to try to deal with that.
yeah,
When
but it's
he's
also the,
already inaugurated, you know.
it's also the legitimacy deficit that I'm worried about, that in the court of public opinion, that's already setting. And if it sets, even with a great victory in the Supreme Court, it doesn't matter. Throwing out 1 million ballots, whatever, just hypothetically, the people won't buy it. Hence, civil war, I think. Anyway, I don't want to get too negative.
Well, that's why.
I have no doubt about that. I've been saying that for about 5 years.
Don't you find
I've
it
seen the way
rather
the
odd
Trump
that?
But anyway,
Don't you find it rather odd that the question was always asked to Trump? What would you do? Would you contest the election?
of course.
What did the media know? Did they know it was going to come down to this? Number one, this is for both of you guys. Number two, why this fervor over ballots? Was it because of the pandemic? People are going to get corona. Why not just have people? You have 4 days to vote instead of 1. Now you have 4. Why not do that? I find it rather odd that they did this ballot thing, and that when I went to bed on election night, Trump was ahead of all of these big states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And now that they're counting ballots, I thought the ballots from the left, supposedly Democratic ballots, were coming in first. How these ballots haven't been counted, and they're not mostly Democrat.
You got to take into consideration how the
please.
process plays out. First, we look at what the COVID-19 pandemic introduced.
Sure.
You had a lot of people that felt as if it was unsafe to vote in person. We got that. But with a lot of these mail-in ballots, could not be computed until election day. The second piece to that is when we look at Trump being ahead, initially, and I feel your pain with this, but you have to look at the geographical nature of where these ballots were being tabulated in certain states. So I'll give you an example of what's happening in Pennsylvania right now. Trump was up by hundreds of thousands
700,000,
of votes.
yeah.
Right. However, when you look at the places where these votes were coming in, they were red. These were red, geographically controlled areas. I shouldn't say controlled because that sounds like, but these were geographically red areas. Now, when we look at the ballots that are being tabulated at this juncture, these are democratically controlled areas. That being said, I understand it. I don't necessarily agree with the outcome. The same holds true in what's happening in Georgia. And let me tell you, no one is hurting more than me.
No. I'm not even putting my personal thing on this.
But no one is in more pain than me as it relates to
I'm not trying to put my personal spin on it.
Right. Well, I'm putting my personal spin on this, and I'm telling you, the Trump agenda works for my life. Yeah. The Biden agenda, I've never in my history seen.
And our people too, we should say, for goodness sake.
I've never seen in my life a presidential candidate that ran on a platform of a tax increase that was elected into office.
Right, exactly.
And so that being said, it begs the question of, damn, is this lunacy or what? And I think a lot of people have voted for Joe Biden as a referendum on their dislike for Trump's personality, and not his practices, his messaging, and the execution of his policies.
But I find it rather odd in that if the votes are valid, that Republicans are gaining in the House. I think they're trying to take some of those. It seems like they're taking those away. John James for Senate in South Carolina, he was up 98% when the votes were tallied. Then he loses at the end. He was up the whole election. I find it rather odd, and I heard from various sources, you could correct me if I'm wrong because you're on the inside, 120,000 votes came from from Detroit, and they've never voted that high, and
Milwaukee
population down, and every vote was pro-Biden. It sounds very odd.
Yeah, I think 130,000 votes came after
the African-American.
After they supposedly stopped counting 130, a cache of 130,
very odd.
A cache of 100,000.
Well, no, you have to figure.
Guys, you still hear me?
You have to factor in. You have to factor in the mail-in ballots from, let's say, people that are in the military but the ballots had to be postmarked. They could even come in after Election Day, but they needed to be postmarked no later than Election Day. And the maximum that they can come in would have been today. Friday would have been the deadline.
Yeah, I heard that some of those didn't have to be postmarked.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of legal claims, that's a wonderful claim as well, too. That I think it's contrary to the laws of Pennsylvania as well, that ballots that come in after the election date are not to be counted. And they're allowing that to happen, and they're not demanding that these ballots be postmarked or even signed. Tell me if that's just rumor or is that fact? But anyway, there's a legal.
I think one of the challenges that you have in Pennsylvania is you already had a standing election law that was just changed recently.
Yeah.
And so that being said, I think it really challenges the integrity of the election in Pennsylvania. And, right. And so we're looking at 20 electoral votes in Pennsylvania, which are germane to Joe Biden being elected. Whether we like it or not, Joe Biden is going to be the president-elect. I give it by this evening, by 6 p.m., and we're going to have to swallow concrete on that. I think what we need to do is look forth to who is the plausible candidate to come in 2024.
Oh, so you think it's over? So you think it's over? I think we're kind of.
I don't think it's over. I know it's over, Chris.
Really? Wow.
I don't think it's over.
Yeah, but that's guys, that's contradicting what we were saying before, that we should give the process time. No,
and I mean wholehearted. No, Chris, it does run consistent with my theory. I feel that we give the process time, and that's when you present it into a court of law. But I genuinely believe
for what person to overturn it?
The courts are going to reject the Trump administration's argument. That's what's going to happen, whether we like it or not. And you mark my words, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah, no, it's based on the principle of possession being 9/10 of the law. If you steal, you win. I mean, is that what we're saying here in the end? Particularly when it comes to a presidential election. That's what we're saying here. Yeah, because then you get the media. By the way, I see very disturbing things happening with the mainstream media, even with Fox, of course, calling Arizona when they should not have called Arizona. And now I'm seeing. Let me just say, I'm looking.
Prematurely called. No, I agree. Fox prematurely called.
And also the New York Post. This is breaking my heart. I'm seeing articles here saying that Eric Trump Jr. is crazy because he has the same conspiracy theory about a stolen election as his father. I think the fix is in. Where is McConnell? Where are the Republicans? Where are all these voices?
I think some of these Republicans, Chris, some of these Republicans don't want to risk their future.
That's my point. Yeah,
because he might lose. That's my simple take on it. I just think this is definitely a coup. This is one of the many with Russia, the Ukraine, the media. 94% of their reporting was negative for Trump, so they're part of it.
Okay,
I think it's very simple and obvious to see. Darrin, of course, there's some evidence out there.
I'm very excited here. I'm sorry about this. Yeah, can I just
add a couple of things? One of the things that really upset me about Trump while he was during his 4-year tenure was he didn't grow the tent. You didn't win the popular vote against Hillary Clinton. You fairly won the election because you won the Electoral College. I think he was at 305 electoral votes. But that being said, there should have been a clear identifier to you as, look, moving forward, you can't run the same campaign that you ran against Hillary Clinton against Joe Biden.
Yeah, but
the likability factor with Joe Biden, you had more people, not saying that he was a likable candidate, but more people liked Joe Biden than they did Hillary Clinton.
But then again, he said
hear me out, Chris, I'm going to give you a complete lane on this.
Okay.
As a tactician, you need to understand that this is the electorate that you're up against. Therefore, you needed to start your campaign from day one after you swore into the White House.
But then again, he made historic gains with African Americans, with Hispanic Americans. I mean, we can't.
Huge.
Okay,
he got 5% less. He got 5% less of the white male vote. 5%.
He didn't grow to 10.
But that is
if he would have kept the white males, it would have been a no-brainer. And if he didn't have COVID, I know these are a lot of ifs, and maybe
COVID killed him. If he didn't have COVID, you're right on point.
Which was a wonderful. Yeah, but if you look at the history of it, it was rigged. It's a setup. Can't you?
This is what I'm asking you, Darrin.
Oh my goodness!
I'm not asking. Hold on.
Oh my
This
goodness!
is what I'm asking. Hold on. This is
Yeah.
what I'm asking. I ask both of you.
Please.
COVID is real, I guess, right?
Right.
But I think, they try to tie Trump with saying it's a hoax. No, the way we handled it was overblown and hoax-like, and it was used for political gain. Now, there's a lot that came out of people who defected from China, doctors who said it was put here. I don't know. Will we ever know? Was COVID that bad? How many people died of COVID alone?
0.05% here in Europe, here in France.
So, Darrin, this is
more
what
or
I'm
less.
asking.
It's about as dangerous.
What I'm asking.
It's about as dangerous as the flu or the common cold and pneumonia. I mean, and you're going to close down the world economy for that?
Right.
Please.
What I'm asking was, it seems obvious to me, and who will ever know, that COVID was used to have these ballots out there because the Trump train was coming. I think they thought he was invincible. As the senator or congressman from Texas said, the only way to beat him is a certain way, I forget what he said, is to get him out of there before, impeach him. So was the pandemic used to get the ballots out? That's confirmed because they knew he was going to win. The economy was doing so well. I think that's an obvious angle that could be explored.
I don't think COVID was used as a correlation to defeat Trump. I think this was something that happened internationally, and it wasn't managed accordingly. I think that there were multiple things that could have been handled better. So, and I'm speaking not as a person that has an understanding of social science, but I feel that the suppression of our economy was germane to his loss in this election. Had you extracted COVID, Trump wins by a landslide.
Okay, guys, if
you had competing arguments, Ted.
Yeah, I just want to prognosticate here. I don't think we're going to have an election nowhere near as fair, even though it's not fair now, nowhere near the semblance of fairness in 4 years. I think this is it. I think it's a game changer. I really think this is it for American democracy.
I disagree. I disagree.
Let me just say a few things. I hope we have the freedom to discuss this openly in the next couple of years. It'd be wonderful. And I hope I'm being proved wrong. I think it's a coup-d'etat. And I think everything has been used, including COVID, for that purpose. If you look at the history of this and the way that it's been exploited and the way it's been used in every corner of the world, we have to look outside the bubble of New York City and look at the rest of the world. It is a smackdown for totalitarianism. Anyway, let me just say, can I just ask you really critical questions? If my theory is true, that this is a coup d'etat, and not just a coup d'etat, but the coup d'etat to knock out America, which was the only problem in the globalist agenda to offer some socialist utopia based on climate change. I mean, let's go through the history of all this, and social justice, and open borders, and so on, and the end of capitalism, what little we have. If I'm right about this, that it is a coup d'etat, what I need to know is, from your perspective, you two gentlemen, what is the president's response? Is he going to go full Bronx, New Yorker, and fight and hunker down with Giuliani and such, and fight this out, and bring this maybe to a military solution? We have to start thinking like this. And number two, what the people's response will be across the political spectrum, and number three, what the military response might be. I think that's where I'm going with this, and I think I'm going to be proved right about this. Please.
All right, Steve, you want to take the first bite at the apple?
I think Trump is going to fight this. We talked about Al Gore. It lasted 38 days for Florida. So I think he's going to fight this as best as he can. I think the best remedy, you said Biden will be sworn in at 6. He has to prevent that from happening.
He'll be declared the winner.
Declared the winner. Yeah, that's what I meant. Declared the winner. I'm sorry. And Trump has to give an alternative. If Biden's going to speak today, Trump has to say there's still a lot of questions out there. We're doing our best. It's
not over.
It's not over yet. Let's. I believe in the process. Let's do it this way. Yeah. That's my belief. Chris, Darrin, is Trump going to hunker down with Giuliani and they're going to force him out if he doesn't concede?
Well, I think all right, just going into the 3 components that Chris brought up. One, I don't think a military solution is plausible because I don't foresee the conflict that arises commensurate to where the military will be deployed. Therefore, I removed that component. The second component, in connection with Trump fighting this tooth and nail, I think that he's doing any and everything possible to try to counter what's happening with this election. There's a lot of this that I don't necessarily agree with because I haven't seen substantive proof to election fraud or gross irregularities.
Well,
now,
coming
bear
up,
in mind, no, right, but bear in mind, I could be wrong about this.
Yeah.
Election law is not my strong point. I'm speaking just merely as someone speaks to this stuff on television. That's it. My empirical knowledge of the election fraud in connection with this particular case, I don't have an investigative entity that has revealed that to me. Lastly, in terms of where we're going, I think one of the best things that can happen here, believe it or not, and I'm telling you this as a person that voted for Trump, was Biden winning this election. Because by Biden winning this election, it will now show us the other end of the spectrum and a colossal failure. So I think that Biden is going to tank the ship so hard and heavy that we're going to beg for a savior to come in and take us to a better place. That being said, sometimes you got to touch the stove. You got to touch the stove to realize it's hot, and that's when you get burned. When you realize that,
the media protect Biden?
Shit, don't touch the stove anymore. The media protected Biden throughout the course of his campaign. When you looked at the softball questions, there were no hard-pressing issues that were presented to Biden.
What flavor ice cream are you looking there? You know,
right.
I don't know. I think it's
Biden. In addition to that, Biden had the luxury of cowering in his bunker, and he used the excuse of, look, the COVID is there, therefore I don't want to be out front campaigning as much. You could, like, the way we're engaged in this discourse over the computer, Biden could have done the same thing. He opted not to do that. He could have purchased airtime either from a commercial perspective with advertisements, or he could have merely put together these Zoom sessions and sent them over to the major networks. That's not what happened. Biden knew his weakness, and I understood and I can identify with the fact that he knew that he wasn't a tremendous orator. That's therefore he stood back and let Trump shoot himself in the foot.
He's also mentally ill too.
He knew the media was going to take him. The media said, "Don't worry, we got this. We'll take you over the finish line. No hard questions, no question."
Yeah, maybe we don't want to take up too much of your time. Yeah, these are very difficult questions. But I would love the opportunity for all of us to gather again, if that's possible.
Yeah. Sure. Look, I'm always up for these types of plausible discourse on terminal issues packed on our society. I'm all the way in with this, you know.
I don't think we have enough information about the election. We don't know what his
and that's what I was
by the way,
at, Chris.
How this fits, I just want you to appreciate how this fits from our perspective in Europe, where, you know, really democracy is hanging on a knife's edge. This is a very scary thing. This is beyond 1939. You know, and the rise of totalitarianism.
Yeah.
I know.
No, I agree with you.
Well, you're behind, but when you're not around, he actually agrees with me with the 1980s.
No, I said I never
right.
said I disagreed.
Okay.
I mean, there's so much information where you're going with the Catholic Church, with the 1619 Project, with the anti-American agenda being pushed in colleges. I mean, in high schools. I know all this. I agree.
Chris, let me ask you a quick question.
Please.
Where did you go to law school? Columbia?
Harvard.
You went to Harvard Law?
Yeah.
So when you were there, Obama was there, correct?
Yes. And I'm in a very a famous picture with him on the men. It's funny. The Men of Color calendar at Harvard Law School. So I'm like that little brown dot in the middle.
Were you guys
with Obama and everyone else laughing at me, by the way? And I think Michelle Obama.
Were you a student there, or was he a professor there when you were there?
No, he was never there as a professor. He was a professor at the University of Chicago Law School.
Oh, I always thought that he was cool. So you got the chance to engage him on a lot.
No, I didn't engage him, but I heard of him. And I'll be honest, I wasn't very impressed, because what I heard was, so he became the first black head of the Harvard Law Review, And
Right.
of course, you know, the New York Times and all that, they covered that. And then he went on, and it bothered me a little bit without knowing enough. He started engaging in the racial dimensions of the law review and the lack of the opportunities, you know, and so on and so forth. So I think he just kind of jumped the gun on the racial question. And I think it kind of took away the beauty of a, you know, a very proud and very brilliant man who, on his own steam, on his merits, you know, got where he's supposed to go. Wonderful.
Did you know Jeff Zucker, the CEO of CNN? Because he was there at the same time as well.
Wow.
Oh shoot! Wow, you got to give me the dates when he was there. I graduated.
He was the president.
93.
He was the president of the Harvard Law Review.
Wow.
So right. These are just two people that, you know, I'm thinking offhand because that was the intersection in time you would have been there.
Yeah, sure.
So you know,
like I mentioned, I might have been locked in a room when we took over the dean's office with Michelle Obama. And I'm not sure about if Barack was there, but the rest of them were there. And I think it was Michelle Obama. And she was giving me her political poetry, which bordered on angry feminist rant. In my mind's eye, it was her, but maybe it could be another like her who was older than me.
You know, it's funny.
And I had to sit there at like 4 in the morning listening to this poetry, man, about, you know, snipping men's, you know, genitalia off, man.
Right.
And let me ask you, we talk about a leader emerging from this. I have a little bit of, here's my cynical perspective of us entering into a reign of terror, internationally speaking, globally speaking, and then arising from the military ranks, someone like a Napoleon type figure. Anyway, if that doesn't happen, short of that, what about you brothers running for office? I keep saying,
I don't want office. I
challenge AOC.
But the thing that you have to take in consideration with running for office, one, the electorate. You can be the most qualified person, but does this equate in the eyes of the electorate?
That's my
You
never know.
Right. I mean, that's everything. The offices that I think that I would have a shot at would be as a senator in New York. I would never win the mayor because New York City is just going so far to the left that it's something that's unreasonable. It just would never happen if you set forth a plausible agenda.
You gotta move
for free.
Yeah, you got to move to like Cooperstown and run for Senate, man.
But the Senate, and you know, and I thought about
why not?
Gillibrand would be ripe meat for me, and that's something that I've actually thought to. I thought about for a period of time because right now we have Chuck Schumer, who's the senior senator. He's the minority speaker in the Senate, but Gillibrand is the junior senator. She hasn't. Her body of work has been minimal, to say the least.
Hey, please,
so
please think of us. Think of us if you ever decide that, because I'll be on that. I'll be on that wagon if you don't mind. You know.
No, now is the time that I'm really thinking that we need a conservative senator in New York because people are seeing how the failed policies of the Democratic Party has subsequently taken us backward in connection with socioeconomics that have fallen to the floor, coupled with the lack of public safety that's allowing.
You know what I find?
But no. What I fear the most, what I fear more than dealing with the social psychology of the electorate is a fair electoral process. As Dan
you got to get that first.
As Dan Bongino said, he believes he was robbed in Baltimore. But you tell me, guys.
Yeah, you got to get that first. But you know what I found very interesting? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Trump received 40% of the vote in New York. That's a pretty decent number.
Did he get 40?
I think so. I think he's
it was much higher than we anticipated. So it wasn't a landslide, but it made sense. And I'll tell you why.
That's pretty good.
It's a referendum against de Blasio.
That's what I'm saying.
That's exactly what it was, because the population of New York State had been denigrated in relation to public safety and socioeconomics in connection with the lockdowns of the COVID-19. So as Chris mentioned, that was more of a referendum on not just de Blasio, but Cuomo as well. So the symbiotic relationship between the two is what people saw.
So if they felt that way, New Yorkers, which are liberal, wouldn't you think people in like Georgia would feel that way?
Well, no, you got to also remember, you're looking from the context of New York City, 8.5 million people within the 365 square miles. But when you go north of New York, you go west, like Long Island, when you go upstate, the electorate changes tremendously. That being said, that's why it ran consistent with Trump doing as well as he did here.
Right.
Granted, he lost, but it wasn't like the bottom fell out.
I'm sure I would lose, but one of my last acts before I died, before I be marched into some concentration camp, I would love to debate AOC, Schumer.
Yeah, but
Nadler,
once again,
Schiff.
I know you would love to do that. Wait, let me just say one thing, Darrin, and that's a beautiful thing. It might never get to that. It's never going to get, as we discuss. This isn't the firing line with Buckley anymore, where they're going to have you debate Schumer.
Well, of course it will.
Yeah.
No.
I'll have a gathering at Community Center
All right,
1.
Let's give Steve the floor, Chris.
Listen to me for 1 second.
All right.
You saw what they did with Biden. They keep these guys away.
Okay.
And what percentage is going to be on that intellectual level that is going to say, wow, what Chris said here really is interesting. He's getting my vote. No, it's a small percentage of people that you're going to be knocking on doors. I worked for Fernando Ferrer after NYU. You're going to be knocking on doors, community boards, dealing with all that. That's what it is. It's not the debate between Chris and Schumer. That sounds beautiful.
there's a certain beauty. I've done that, by the way, with Federico. There's a beauty to knocking on doors and meeting people on the streets and going to work at the subway. At the subway entrance. In Baychester or something.
But
that too, man.
But we're looking for that beautiful defining moment.
No.
L.A. Law or Johnny Cochran.
One step at a time. Yeah.
Chris, Steve.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine Michelle Cabruso Cabrera ran against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and lost in the primary. She was a Republican, which she was she was an anchor at CNBC. She left CNBC to run for office. She was far more qualified. She was far more intellectual. She was a much greater debater. However, the debate stage was drastically limited in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. So her messaging was not amplified the way it should have been. She was a far better candidate. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got copious amounts of cash through the Democratic Party for doing dick. That being said, this money came in for her, and she had the ability to just completely stretch out. And the people in that district, once again, reelected a lunatic that is continuously denigrating that population. So going back to what you were saying, Chris, and as well as you, Steve, just because you're qualified, that doesn't mean shit. It's how do you effectively connect with that population that you're looking to serve?
What about
people want a moron? They want a fucking idiot in there because they know that person has reflective qualities as to who they are. I'm sorry.
What about this? What about this brilliant sister in Baltimore? How did she do? Classic.
The black chick?
72 to 28.
She lost. Yeah. She had great messaging points. And she lost.
And what about this brother who ran against Maxine Ward?
70 to 30 again. 70 to 30.
Oh my goodness. You got
That's what I'm trying to tell you. You have to
be clear. Let's not focus on identity politics. Because when we look at someone based on them being a woman, based on them being African American, based on them being Latino, we've lost before we even began the race. Identity politics should not be the lens that you look through. It should be confidence. It should be competence and your ability to connect with the electorate.
May I say one thing, Chris? We have to realize, and I learned this, my father used to work for Rockefeller and Ford. He was part of his campaign. And he was in politics, my father. But
they built up the New World Order, I remember.
Yeah. What you have to learn.
Not to mention the finding of Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. When
he was a
boxing commissioner.
You remember my uncle?
Really? Well, you have
I knew your uncle very well.
Awesome.
What you have to know.
Wait, no. Let me hear the story. Yeah. Tell me.
Go ahead. What you have to know.
I want to hear the story. Come on, about your father. Yeah.
Steve, ask Greg. What was my connection with him, with your dad, when the situation happened and went awry?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And he'll tell you like that, because I don't want to speak to this.
I see.
But what I wanted to say, Chris.
Or ask Cliff. They'll both tell you the same thing.
All right.
When the chips were down, I was there. Go ahead.
Great.
God bless you. Thank you.
what I wanted to say, Chris,
Yeah,
very few of the population vote. And you have to realize also, there are people who want the Democrat to win or the Republican because they've gotten them jobs, they're in a union.
yeah,
There's a million different things. So
yeah.
what percent of the population are you fighting over? I think you'd be much more effective, or we will be much more effective, being on the outside and not being labeled a racist or something, what they call the, continuous lies.
Yeah.
And I would not want to vie for a vote
Yeah.
or have my hand out to get money.
Yeah.
And as we said, I am really upset that 99% of Americans probably can't have this conversation, or
No.
maybe 90 can't, because people don't want to know. They're worried about their own lives.
All right, then explain to me.
cynical.
This could be the last question. Isn't this a referendum against the possibility of liberalism, of democracy working in any reasonable way? It's the end of democracy. If the electorate is not up to snuff, what did Thomas Sowell just say? If you don't understand, don't vote. He just said that a couple of days ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is sobering that you have people who vote who have no clue on what's going on. Their union might tell them. I mean,
exactly.
The UFT, 99% are going to vote Democrat? They have to.
Likability is everything with these contests, these
It's
elections.
disgusting, Chris.
It's terrible. Fucking terrible.
But we shouldn't take up too much of your time more.
All right, well, I'm more than willing, to sit down with you guys and kind of go into this stuff further.
I really hope that I'm wrong in my prognostication here, and I hope we have another chance, for the next couple of years to have these.
But when you see 6 p.m. today, you'll understand what I said to you. Did Fox call Arizona prematurely?
All right, I'm going to start drinking. Oh,
absolutely.
I appreciate it, Darrin. We'll keep in touch. We got to meet up for
in Paris. You ever find yourself here?
I'm coming to Paris. I've been there several times. The last time I'm going there, I'm actually staying at the Peninsula Hotel in July of next year.
Please,
I'm going to Paris, and then I'm
up.
going to Monte Carlo, and then I'm going to Saint Tropez.
They're going to take your shirt in Monte Carlo. We'll talk.
Vacation. No. I'm staying
I go to Paris.
The Hotel de Paris, I think it is, that I'm staying in Monte Carlo. I've never been to Monte Carlo.
Look this up.
Saint Tropez.
Oh, it's just a ghetto for rich people. It's disgusting. Architecturally, they destroyed all the beautiful architecture, and they replaced it with Bauhaus nonsense, man. See, it's not good to have so much money, right? But anyway,
I'm going over there to take my old lady to shut her up. So
but look,
we were supposed to go 2 months ago, but in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a moratorium on international travel.
Hey, but if you don't mind, look us up in Paris, and we'll show you around.
No, absolutely.
No,
appreciate it.
I might be up there too again. I go every year to see this guy.
To raise my kids properly. Yeah.
Well, let's circle back on this poignant discussion, because I think that there's tremendous relevance in this, not just on the topic of the election, but just moving forward in connection with social issues that impact our society.
Exactly.
You got it. And you smoke cigars?
Unfortunately, I don't smoke. I don't drink. It's funny. The last time I saw you, Steve, I was with my ex-girlfriend. I think we were in Artichoke Pizza, right?
At least you like women.
Street, right?
All right.
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah.
No, I saw you.
At least you enjoy a little skirt.
I think you told me you were going to Catch, or you go there often. And I was like,
yes. I used to go there quite a bit.
I
don't smoke. This is crazy. I don't smoke, I don't drink, but I eat like a pig. And I used to do all of that shit. I used to smoke regularly. Cigars. I had a humidor the size of a refrigerator. Refrigerator. I just stopped. The same old shit with drink. I'm 54 now, and so as you get older, I need to focus more so on the health provisions. And secondly,
what can I ask? What high school did you go to, by the way?
Truman.
Oh, I went to Truman High School. It was the local school. Yeah.
They mugged me a good 3-4
It
times.
was.
You know that on my way to Spelman, they beat me up.
Wait, hold on. Darrin, the school was phenomenal with your facilities. The problem was, correct me if I'm wrong, people being bussed in from these neighborhoods like the Valley that with us and secret.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I went to Truman. It was the local school.
Yeah. Wait, talk about the characters. You must know the Peachy brothers, man. Right?
The Peachy?
Yeah, from Boston Sea Corps. Malcolm Walton, he's another brother from there. And then you had Lisa Casa and the Costa sisters.
It's a big
Can't
school,
remember
brother.
offhand. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, we're going back 40 years ago, man.
It was like yesterday, I think. Really, like yesterday, man. Oh man.
But no,
40 years ago.
I mean, you're putting down Truman. You had to have the best facilities
Oh,
of
yeah.
any school in New York.
Oh yeah,
It's like
without a
Iverson.
doubt.
Not even close. The facilities were adequate, but
No,
actually
it
when I
was
was there, they took the state championship in basketball. Rod Strickland.
Yeah,
was
Rod
playing
Strickland
for
and
them
Rob
at the time.
Brantley. Rob
Yes, Rob knew your father very
Rob
well.
Brantley
He
was
knew
down
your
with that
father.
team? Oh,
Yeah.
Rob.
My father.
Rob loved your father.
Yeah, my
I
father.
remember
helped
when
him
Greg
out
was
when
playing,
he was
man.
in his period.
What about Tuffy
Well,
McGee?
Greg went to
Remember this
St.
guy?
Raymond's.
Yes,
Yeah,
Greg
he
and
was.
Cliff.
Yeah. Tuffy did. He went to high school, but he went to Truman, but he didn't play on the basketball.
Yeah, he blamed me for breaking his collarbone because we played football. Let me just say, man, we were
You've
playing
been saying a lot.
me and Cliff, okay, with the pads on, and we were in section 5, and we were in the snow with ice. And he said, it was with Rob Brantley, I think. And he said, and he thought he could actually muscle us without pads, which is stupid. And he was quarterbacking, and I tackled him.
And he was probably this thin.
And I know it's not a big feat. I mean, I'm not exactly Lawrence Taylor either. And and I sacked him like 3 times. And the last time he slipped on the concrete and he broke his collarbone. Yeah, so yeah, that's a typical story from the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, I went to Spelman. We had about 18 relatives that went to Spelman.
Really? You didn't go to St. Raymond's like your brother, like both of your brothers?
My cousin Phil was a senior.
Yeah.
My cousin Phil was a senior, and when I was in 8th grade, I'm looking at the yearbook. And I've always liked women. I'm looking at all these beautiful women. I said, I'm definitely.
Okay. Yeah, there were no. Yeah, St. Burgers was all boys. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, my father was angry, and the coach called me.
The hottest girl was one of his brothers.
Hold on, Chris. The coach called me at St. Raymond's and said, you didn't even put us down? I said, Mr. Patnash, I'm not going to an all-boys school. So I went there. I played a little baseball. I was good enough. I got a D1 scholarship. I went to Fairleigh Dickinson on a full ride.
Professor
didn't like
Dickinson.
I didn't like the school. I disliked it. I transferred to NYU, studied political science. Then a couple of years later, went back and went to film school there. So I've dabbled. I made some short films and stuff.
Can I? What about Kenny Love? You must know him. Played football for Truman.
They all sound like freaking. They're part of like the Force MDs.
A porno movie.
Yeah, Kenny Love, Johnny G. Like, what is this? Force MD?
Man. That's a good way to. That's a good way to say goodbye. Come on, guys.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys.
Read up.
It's been real, and let's.
Aaron, I'm going to hit you up. I'm going to hit you up
because I want to continue with this discourse. All right.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
All right, guys. Take it easy. Stay safe.
Bless you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. God bless you.
Oh man, pretty great, huh?
Yeah. I'll call you back in a moment.
No, you're making me cry when you brought up these old names, man.
Yeah, but it feels like yesterday. It doesn't feel like 40 years ago. Can you believe that? No, really. Like I have a crystalline memory, I have to say, about almost everything. What about you? I think of things that I can't believe that I thought of. Right?
Look, I think you have some sort of gift that you at age 12 you were asking the question that the ancient Greeks asked: why are we here, and what does it all mean? I told you that at 12. I'm not kidding. I was content with playing sports, seeing you, Phil, my brothers. Seeing a pretty girl on the street. Oh, she likes you. You know, that sent such a charge in me, you know, when you saw a girl you liked.
Hey, me too, don't get me wrong. And I was obsessed with comic books, man. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I had 4 things. I had baseball, football. Yeah. These are my passions. Playing and watching, especially, well, that was the Yankees. That was the World Series. You know,
the 70s. Those
77 team, right? 76,
wow, 77, 78.
And I had the Dallas Cowboys. Don't ask me why. You know, I skipped over. I had Namath before that with the Jets, but then after that was all about
Namath was cool, man.
But
Chris, you're making me cry.
Because it was girls. It was comic books. It was 007. Don't ask me.
Oh, of course,
dude. How excited would I get when there was a Bond movie on? In fact,
that's why I never could picture myself getting married because he was a bachelor.
Yeah, Phil is scarred. My brother Phil is scarred around his eye because my father got us so excited. Goldfinger, something like that. And we ran down. We had this long hallway, but at the end of the hallway, it was like this, like really not a fake wall, but like back in the day in co-op, we had real walls. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, those were
project. Yeah, this wall was like 5 feet of cement. You know, and I don't know what, Phil had no coordination back then. So I did a little jizzle and I went like this to cut into my father's room, at the end. But Phil just went straight through the wall. That's what happened.
I remember that.
And that was the first time he got stitches and I got blamed for it. Me and Sean Connery got blamed for that.
But remember that excitement you had for Sean Connery? It was Sunday.
Yeah.
It was always you're like studying because next day is school.
Yeah.
But that excitement we had, man.
But yeah, well, I'll say that again about Sean Connery. Man, I'm gonna let me say the world. We said this when Sinatra died. We went to Hoboken and we were looking for the birthplace of Sinatra.
Yeah, we went.
And we found a little plaque or something on the cement. Remember, there was like an old
maybe a star or something.
An old man of the neighborhood, and he knew what we were looking for, and it was me, you, and who else? Phil, was it, or Michael? No, maybe Desmond. And he said, Frankie, he was born around the block there, and he gave us the address, and then we threw beer on the floor, and we started kissing the cement. You know why? My father said it best. He said when Frankie baby died, and then Brando, he said the country was never the same. And I'm going to say the same thing about Sean Connery. The country, maybe the world is not the same. It won't be the same.
Definitely isn't. You think Frank would have taken all this crap? Or this Antifa shit, or BLM? What are you, crazy?
Now, the question I had is whether he would break the cult of Hollywood, the cult of the left, and he would have crossed party lines. He would have gone against the Hollywood class, and he would have said, this is a man of the moment. He would have endorsed Trump, like James Woods, for goodness sake, and John Voight, another Bronx boy, John Voight. You think he would have done that? I'm not sure, but I would like to think.
Yeah.
What you think?
I think so, because these guys are like meat-eating Americans, and we talked about this before. Many of those old actors, they went to war, man. That was their duty. This was their country. I mean, even if you're an African American and you didn't have the rights that you deserve, you went to war for America. Some might say that's stupid. I might say, wow, these people had an idea, or they knew America was great despite some of its flaws. I mean, and
I think that defines this generation. They have not been tested by the fire of war and really the fire of adversity. And so what happens? You create adversity amongst yourselves. You cannibalize each other, right? That's what explains, right? Your metal has to be tested. We didn't go to war per se, but let me tell you, we suffered, as we're speaking with a good professor, we suffered coming up from the streets of New York City during a very difficult time. The crack epidemic and the gang epidemics of the 70s and 80s. Heroin as well, too. 70s, 80s.
Well, I was trying to make the point, but then the audio was cut off. Truman had phenomenal facilities, almost equivalent to Stuyvesant probably today. I said, and those that study did well. The people that did well from there. Yeah. Actually, the two DAs, the last DAs in Brooklyn, or one in the Bronx, went to Truman, the current DA, and the former DA who passed away, unfortunately. That's pretty good, right? Yeah,
but we need to include Co-op City in that as well. I mean, not Co-op City. Cardinal Spellman in that as well too. Yes. We should mention Sotomayor, who your father was responsible for.
Yeah, the point I'm making though is if I read maybe 20 years ago in a paper that Truman was ranked the worst high school in New York.
I heard that a long time. It was #1 for drug arrests, I think.
Now, wait, my question is, that wasn't a Co-op City thing. That had to be people busting from the surrounding neighborhoods.
No, we had a couple of stone cold killers.
No, of course we did.
Wino from section, what was he, from 3? And then we had, section 5, and then we had the Valley, of course, and then we had Secret Roses.
I'm talking early 80s. Okay, or even the 70s, 70s, early 80s.
Yeah,
there was we always talk about this, that family structure from Co-op. There was good diversity. Yeah. I didn't know any Puerto Ricans that were selling drugs. I just didn't. I mean, help me out. I didn't know any Jews that were selling drugs or Italians. Okay, there might have been some African Americans that were dabbling in stuff, but I think most of the negativity that came from Co-op City came from the surrounding neighborhoods. They terrorized us.
Yeah.
I'm wrong?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do you know any instances of Co-op people in Co-op City getting killed from another person from Co-op City?
Yeah, me. When I came back from
killed.
My first year. Yeah, there was someone we grew up with. I don't know where exactly it was from.
Okay, it was rare.
Let me just
I
say,
know one.
there was a young Puerto Rican kid, and that's when we had the leather bomber jackets, and he was walking through Truman, which was kind of scary at night. And apparently, there was a struggle. He put up his hand. The guy, they know who it was. Some other guy shot him through the hand and shot him again and killed him and killed him and killed him.
Okay, the guy that killed him was from Co-op City.
Don't know, but I think so.
That's my question to you. And
but I do remember distinctly with Jimmy Schneider and Phil when they were kind of young, and I'm at Cornell at the time, my first year, and I tell you that we were looking for a party, a Sweet 16, in as usual, that was nice at the community center in Section 5. And I don't know what happened, but I always have a mouth on me, and I had a mouth on me back then, even if I didn't have the guns around me, and I only had two young pups, who were tough, but and they surrounded us, and they kept following us, and they were following us through the community center, and they were loaded, man. They were looking to kill us, and then we were saved by what's his name? Sure, come on.
He saved you?
You know him from Orchard Beach fame. Yeah. He was a character, Puerto Rican, He always had the box. It was like this big.
He saved you.
Yeah, he did, actually. He knew them. We had to go. We went into, a deli. I was trying to act hard. Who am I, stupid little Ivy leaguer trying to act tough? These guys kill for a living, and that's what they were all telling me. And and a crowd was gathering outside the deli. And I'm sure there were a lot of your boys, too, by the way. But anyway,
just because you weren't from there,
and I had a mouth on me, and I was willing to fight. Hey, see, I don't mind fighting fairly. I fight very often. I fight here. I fought every place in the world, including at Harvard Law School, by the way. That's another story. I don't mind fighting, but when you fight unfairly, when you fight to kill, and you fight with a gang, and you have knives and guns and bats, well, I'm kind of good with bats, man. Actually, okay, bats are not too bad. But anyway, the rest of them.
You get hit in the head.
Just like when you run for office, I don't mind losing. I don't mind Trump losing. But for it to be stolen in a way so brazenly, right? I mean, what defines the left now is that they're a cult of lies. And it just gets driven home to me time and time again from, how CO2, a natural byproduct of life, of photosynthesis, is now the worst thing in the world, to of course, George Floyd, and then coming to COVID. And now the mantra among the left is can't breathe, can't breathe. Like the Nice Shyamalan movie about the air turning against us. This is crazy. But anyway, there's no scientific validity in global warming. That's why they had to change the argument from global warming to climate change, which makes it impossible to prove because there are thousands, if not more than thousands of variables that go into proving or disproving the idea of climate change by CO2. And then comes the very strange history of COVID that wasn't fully explored, certainly not within the mainstream press. And then comes, of course, we went from Russian
collusion, the
to Ukraine, to ballast harvesting. And to say that there's not enough evidence about ballot harvesting. And
that's where a third party takes the ballots and brings them in.
And 80 million unsolicited ballots that are being sent around to cats, to old people who are out of that, to dead people, and they're sent multiply, and there's no check of ID. I wasn't checked when I
said before,
absentia when I voted through absentee ballot in New York. My wife was surprised. It was like no ID check. So anyone can vote more than one time.
There are a lot of cases where they're talking about fraud. Their videos, reputable people are saying
votes are an announcement that he's.
Reputable people are saying votes are coming in. Hi, Florence. That are 100% Biden. That's one. Forget all that. Just the fact that they push these ballots is enough for me.
Yeah.
And I knew this months ago.
Yeah.
Why these ballots? So they could play with them. This is so obvious, man.
Did you receive?
No, I didn't receive one.
Okay.
But Phil and you and Yvonne and everyone in New York, they said they didn't even need ID when they voted.
Oh no, I didn't need ID. Of
course.
ID.
So what stops someone from going from poll booth to poll booth, ballot place to ballot place, voting multiple times?
Well, once
Biden and
actually that's
the next President Harris.
That was something I was going to bring up. Why did the Democrats push this? No idea. They've been pushing this for a long time.
No.
You have to be a buffoon to not realize they want to be able to alter.
Not just for this, but
I
by
don't
the
know
way,
what to
we
tell
need to look at the history of electoral politics in the United States. We could land people on the moon, probably. If
Oh, that's what I always said.
We could land in
50
Mars.
years ago.
We as you would say, what did Victor David Hanson say about fighting the Second World War? We fought on multiple fronts.
Yeah, 5 fronts.
Well, yeah, and we were also supplying arms to the United Kingdom.
All of it to
and the
Russia.
D-Day invasion and Russia, and we were fighting in the Pacific as well, and that's fine. We can handle all of that. And then you're telling me we can't clean up
50 years ago.
we can't clean up our electoral system? It's because
You know why it's not clean?
because one half of the equation, them on the political
Yes.
left, want to maintain chaos because they profit from chaos.
That's why it's not cleaned up.
Exactly.
And I put that email out a couple of days ago. A frat brother laughed at me. Why are you putting this up? That Pennsylvania, a judge admitted that he stuffed ballots for Democrats and he's going to jail. Why would you put this up? I said, do you know why? Because history repeats itself and it might happen again today. And
Well,
sure enough,
that was before?
that was before. I put it up 2 days
Really?
before. And our friend who we interviewed, you met him, said, why would I put this up? Because I knew it was going to happen again.
And he happens to be a lawyer, and he can't make the connection, the logical connection.
Well, I'm not here to.
The reptilian mind of the political left, like I keep bringing. And by the way, the most famous constitutional lawyer in the country, my professor, broke my heart with a wonderful bit of illogic, and I just can't believe it because of with respect to this election. Let me not name names, but I just can't believe. I don't know if they're being deceptive or they really lost their capacity to think.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
Their
it's
front
really,
brain reasoning.
it's heartbreaking. I keep tweeting to Trump, actually. I said, don't give up.
Don't give up.
Fight.
I think he should. I think he should take. I think they
Ask
should.
for
I think they should drag him out. I know you don't.
Recount.
I think
And
you
I keep
agree.
saying, ask
Chris,
for
you know the
revote.
consequences? What are the consequences?
Yes, because it
being dragged
okay,
out?
fine. I understand that. It's called civil war. It's a Jefferson Davis Lincoln situation. I got that part.
You
But
think
you
he
know what?
wants that?
No one wants it, but what's the alternative? The alternative is, I don't think you guys fully appreciate what's happening in the world. I think this is the last chance that we have
Oh, hold on.
to at least keep at bay the forces of totalitarianism in the
understand.
world. No, I don't think you can't understand because it's so monstrous. I can barely understand. None of us can understand. And that's always been their ace in the hole. Conspiracy, oh, it's so grand. A possibility, like marching, people into ovens in Auschwitz and Dachau. I mean, come on now, that was monstrous too. And I think we're coming to that moment. Please prove me wrong. I don't think we have much time left in terms of even debating as freely as we do on the net the way that we do now. I think it's a game changer.
All right, man. Call me later in an hour.
Yeah, can you cast a little prayer my way, please, for the world?
Oh yeah, I would. I prayed for you last night. I prayed the rosary, and prayers are in order for where we're going. I think there's a lot of validity into what you say, and this might be potentially the last election. Trump, in my opinion, has to fight. Hopefully, there are enough Republicans that want to fight back, and they're willing to risk skin in the game. But instead of us always playing defense, we have to play offense.
What would our American forefathers who risked all to create this country, the ones who suffered in
They'd be laughing at us. They'd be laughing at us.
the ones who suffered frostbite?
Not laughing. They'd be upset that the other side's not fighting back.
Yeah, what would they say? What would George Washington say, for goodness sake? Goodness sake.
I think too many of us are drinking that tonic of
What would Lincoln say? Yeah.
They're drinking the tonic of the Democratic Party to say, see, we don't riot like you guys. That's a stupid argument. There are reasons to do it and reasons not to do it.
I hear Jefferson calling from the grave, and Benjamin Franklin. What was Benjamin Franklin's words? Some lady, I think, asked. So, are we going to have a republic? A republic, if we can keep it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think Jefferson had the notion of a revolution every generation or so. because he expected this to happen.
It was actually, yes, he did say that. What did he say? Like the tree of liberty needs to be flowered with the blood of patriots, something like that.
Yeah.
Every so often. Yeah.
And you know what? I mean,
And they also said when government becomes intolerable, you have a right to overthrow it.
Of course you do. That's the Lockean notion, which stretches back.
Because government should be serving us. We don't serve government.
It stretches back, I'm sure, to the Holy Gospel in its cardinal principles. But anyway, the bottom line is, I don't think we have much of a choice. I think it's kill or be killed, quite honestly. And I think we're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about our fundamental liberty, rights and liberties. We're talking about the Republic. We're talking about the American project. We're talking about 200 plus years of the most amazing country that the world has ever seen. That's ever been conceived.
Most people don't know that.
A country that was one of only two countries in the world that was founded for the sake of religious liberty. Number one, the first country in the world founded on liberal democratic principles. Number two, in all its imperfections, it was a project in the making.
Yes.
But what a wonderful country. As you can see, for the three of us coming up from the same neighborhood and doing quite well enough, as much as one could expect, for goodness sake.
Right. Well enough.
Are we as rich as Donald Trump? Well, that's not the issue. The issue is we lived a very good life.
Was that ever your goal? That wasn't your goal.
That wasn't my goal. It wasn't my goal. No. My goal was to be on a podcast with my cousin to the day I died. Yeah. Here we are.
Oh, man.
Right.
Hey, call me in a little bit, all right? God bless you.
And God bless you, and God protect us, God lead us, and God bless America as much as we have it.
God bless America. We'll talk later.
Amen.
God bless.